All right then. Welcome everyone to our third building success session. Today's session is focused on the engineering notebook, expectations, and note taking. So I guess just before we begin, I just wanted to start off with a welcome to the country. So I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that the location this meeting is taking place on is owned by that of the Wurundjeri people and the Kulin Nations, and that we'd like to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and to anyone who may be here today. So who I am the two-time Australian national champion. I've also won the Excellence Award twice at nationals here. I've qualified for Worlds twice, and I've won 3 state championships over the years. So 2 of those in Victoria and 1 in the Australian Capital Territory. I also run the Melbourne University Vex Robotics Club, which is where majority of people today are from. And we're also the ones running these sessions, I guess. So Jacob, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jacob. I'm the 2020 New Zealand National Excellence Award winner for New Zealand. I'm a division finalist from Turning Point Worlds. I've got a one of the online challenges. I'm the world champion from 2019 for the Vex Virtual Worlds. And I've got the 2019 World Service Award. And I'm currently the head referee for New Zealand for this season.
And then our other special guest today, we got another surprise guest, Spencer.
Yeah, hello. I'm Spencer. I'm from Kentucky. 2019, I won the World's Design Award, and I won Community Award a few times ago in like 2016 and 2017. I've qualified every year I've been in Vex. This is my 8th year now, so hopefully the streak keeps going. And I've won skills and state excellence from in 2019.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we wanted to go over was the Kaiser model. So this is something we've mentioned at every single workshop, and it's something that we will mention in the next one as well. It's extremely important. And it's just kind of a system that at least my team used and adopted, just kind of as a design cycle, a design process. So it's all about getting everyone in the team involved, identifying all the different problems, then trying to find solutions to those problems, testing them, measuring its success, and then if it's successful, then adding it to the robot or the solution. And then based on that, repeating this entire process on and on until, maybe you might add this intake, and then that intake kind of makes this other mechanism work not as well. So then it's about fixing that other mechanism and then kind of just fine tuning all these little different things, which might cause other issues, but in the end, you ultimately get to a better final product. Anyway, so I think just wanted to start off, we're going to go really quickly and just kind of talk about the rubric. So Spencer, did you want to go over the rubric?
Yeah, I can go over the rubric. So this is pretty much your best friend when doing your engineering notebook. It's like it pretty much is a cheat sheet on exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Just a second,
might want a full screen.
The slides being exited out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just minimized.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Intentional.
Okay. So you'll look through, like, there's different topics on the left side, and then there's different ratings you can get at the top with expert, which is 45 points for the category, proficiency 2 to 3, or emerging 0 to 1. And most of the time, or all the time, you always want to try and make sure you hit all the points in the left side. So the first, I think 5, maybe 6 sections, it's 6 sections, are all about the same thing you do in the design process. It's identifying your challenge, making sure you know what the game is, where your restriction is, knowing what your goals are, setting your goals in the notebook, making sure those are all listed out. That's all very important. So like you show you have an understanding of everything. And then next, after you identify all your challenges, you want to brainstorm your solutions, all different possible things that could possibly work for the game, different drivetrains, different mechanisms for, let's say this year, lifting the mobile goals, controlling the mobile goals, different mechanisms for controlling the rings, picking up the rings, moving the rings. There's so many things you could brainstorm. And so expert is list 3 or more, but you can keep going in that. Sometimes I think I've had notebooks where one specific set has had 20 or so solutions in it. And then next is select the best solution. So that's when your design matrices come out, when you actually make your decisions, you give a good reasoning why you chose your solution, and then how you plan to actually implement it. Because you can choose to do something, but you cannot have a plan to implement it. And that kind of hurts you. And a lot of teams miss that part. I've judged a bunch of notebooks where you miss a point just because you don't explain how you're going to implement the solution. Next part is just documenting how you build and program it. Yeah, Spencer?
So I just wanted to add, just real quick for everyone here from the University of Melbourne, we just have an attendance form. We just need everyone to sign. And then, yeah, so if you're not from the university, you don't have to sign it. We do this every time, just we need to keep track of our membership and our logs. So if you guys are from the club, please make sure you guys fill that one out. Back to you. Yeah.
And then the next part after that is actually you showing you're building it. So taking pictures the entire time you're building, taking pictures of or getting screenshots of your programming, getting every mistake you make in there, every time you change something from your design from one to the next, make sure all that's documented. The whole point of the notebook in Vex's eyes is so someone could take your steps, take the exact steps you took to make your robot. You could give them the notebook and give them all the materials you had from the start, and they could completely replicate your robot step by step, problem by problem.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, yeah.
You guys, sorry.
And then after it's just you showing you testing your solution. So it's your skill runs, practice matches, anything you do before the competition that you actually make sure your robot actually works. Competitions do fall into that as well a little bit, but it's better to show your all your testing, like practice skills runs, practice matches, practice running your 15-second batons or 45 if you're in VexU, just making sure all that is in there. And then just repeating it, because every time you go to a competition, something's going to need to change. You're going to want to change something in your robot. So making sure you follow the exact same design process. And every time you make a change, you make sure you're selecting the best solution. You're showing how you built it. You're showing how you tested it.
I just want to jump in real quick. The other thing about those first 6 stages, so you can see on the leftmost side of the rubric, there's kind of like this little gray thing. This is engineering design process. So those 6 stages directly apply to the Kaiser model, for instance, where you're starting by identifying the challenges, which is what you're doing here. You're gathering a list of the problems. You're then brainstorming and prototyping solutions. You're encouraging solutions and choosing an idea from those prototypes. You're selecting the best solution to advance on. You're building and programming that, which is where you're actually testing it and creating that. And then eventually test and repeat the process. So that kind of cycle directly applies to this, which is why it is an engineering design process. And it's very important that I think every team should kind of choose some sort of model that they use. Like I mean, initially our team, we didn't really want to use like a design process. And like most teams, we didn't really want to have that big of a focus on the engineering book, but it is the most important part of Vex. And even though we didn't want to, our teacher was always like, you guys should really use a process. And then she's like, oh, you have to use Kaizen. And then after that, it was like Kaizen for 7 years. And all we do was Kaizen. So that's like nailed in my head now, but it's very useful. And now looking back, it's something that you really, really kind of appreciate and you know, like. But yeah, as Spencer said, that's kind of, yeah, Jacob, did you want to?
One thing I'd say is like the importance that Vex puts on the notebook is shown through at events where there's only one qualification spot, it will go to Excellence Award. It's not like they'll prefer it over tournament champions or skills champion or whatever.
Yeah.
The other parts of the competition aren't at the same level as the Excellence Award.
If you want to play it safe and qualify for Worlds, going for the Judged Awards is always the best decision you can make. Because like even with VexU, like in Australia, there's only, I think there's 4 VexU teams. None of us actually have a robot yet, but there's 4 teams that exist, right? And now of those 4 teams, at nationals, I'm pretty sure from what I've been told, there's only one spot, which means it's going most likely towards the Excellence Award. It depends how we're going to do it, but Vex is a bit different. But definitely with a high school thing, a couple of years ago, when Australia only had one world spot, that would always go to Excellence Award.
Excellence.
Yeah, so it's something that is really important, and always focus on the judged component of Vex.
Yeah.
Then there's also, yeah, sorry, did you want to?
Yeah, just like judged awards, those are probably like your top tier ones that you want to make sure you hit. And that, like, excellence, it requires on your tournament play and also your skills ranking a lot. So even design is really good to shoot for, because sometimes the best person in design doesn't always win excellence just because they placed, or vice versa. Usually if you're design, you're second place excellence. There's a lot of that for like notebook, etc. So winning those awards is also a very big step in like knowing where you are in your notebook and interview and everything. Spencer, Discord.
Oh yeah, sorry, committee chat. I forgot I'm not. Oh good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's those things that you can control, and it also shows what level you're on and like where you're actually at. And it just like is a booster whenever you win that design award for the first time and you put all this effort into the book and you think, well, I put all this effort and then I don't win the award. Nah, once you win that award, it feels amazing.
It does. I can attest to that. So just to kind of move us on quickly, there's also a second component to the judging side of it, which is also the judges rubric, which is based on the interviews you get. So Jacob, did you want to go over this one maybe?
The
judges interviews.
rubric.
Yeah.
So for the design award, which is also involved towards the Excellence Award, you've got multiple interviews that you'll have. Specifically in New Zealand, we used to run it that you'd have judges come around to all the pits and have interviews with the teams. Then they mark off the teams that they would think design and excellence award are most likely to apply to. And they will have a separate interview at another room with judges doing specifically for design and excellence award, not just all of the judges awards. But they will take in consideration all of the awards that they think you would apply towards, which goes towards your excellence award ranking. And the purpose of these interviews is to fill in the gaps of what you might not have covered in your design notebook. They want to like get that out of you and see that you understand how your team applied your design process to produce your bot and reach a point. Let me just try and bring this up. So to look at the rubric, you've got the same old emerging proficient expert criteria. So there's the 4 to 5 points, 2 to 3 points, and 0 to 1 points. So part of it is the design process and engineering notebook. So it's clearly like explaining how they followed a design process, such as the Kaiser Model, and how they recorded their use of the design process in the notebook. So that's the judges reading your notebook and your interview. So that takes from both of them. Then you've got game strategies and robot designs. You've got to be able to explain all your different strategies. So at least 3 strategies that you considered and designs that you considered. So that needs to be done in both your notebook and in your interview. They'll ask you questions after they've read your notebook. They'll ask you questions more directed at the weaker parts of your notebook. And so, yeah, you need to be able to explain why the current game strategy and robot design were chosen. So, for instance, if you're in Turning Point, which was shooting the flags, you've got to be able to explain why you chose to shoot the flags rather than pick the caps up and put them on the posts. Or looking at more recently, change up last season, deciding why your team decided to have, say, a little flipper rather than a flywheel, or a catapult rather than a flywheel, although most people did use one design. But you need to explain your reasoning for going to a design, and it can't just be, we saw these bots doing well online, and that's why we decided to build it. That's not going to show strong following of the design process. Then for project and team management, you've got to be able to show off how each team member worked, which is often shown through every team member working on the notebook. You shouldn't have just one person does all of the notebooking, because it doesn't show equal effort from each of the team members. And the notebook's their only way of really knowing how you all worked, along with the interview, but the notebook is a better documentation. So each person will write about what they do and mark it at the bottom.
Yeah, sorry, I just
moving on to,
yeah, I just brought this one up. There's just also some sample questions that you can access. Spence, do you want to go through those ones? Sorry.
Yeah. So these sample questions, normally whenever you go to a competition, there's either two types of judges you're ever going to find. There's the experienced ones and there's non-experienced ones. Most of the time, experienced judges are going to ask you more personal questions. They're going to ask you more specific questions on what specifically on the robot this does, or can you describe this in more detail? They're going to ask maybe sometimes programming questions if they don't know, or if they're more programming based. It kind of, you just have to play the judges a lot. But at the end of the second link that I put in chat, and 46 has the entire rubric, 47, 46 has the entire rubric. On 49, there's these sample questions that Spencer has up. And these questions are mainly what they give out to newer judges. So like they have a basis to go off of. And you'll hear these questions a lot. And you want to prepare for them. These are like your good questions to prepare for if you're doing mock interviews. You want to go down this list and make sure you hit all these questions, because if you miss one, they're going to ask it, and you know they're going to ask it because this is what they're given. This is what they're told to ask. So it's just good to go down them and make sure your team always hits these, and trying to split up these questions as well. So not one person answers all these questions. Make sure everyone on your team is answering these questions.
And that's another thing about participation, is that everyone on the team has to contribute during the interview. You can't just have one or two people dictating. I think we had a problem a couple of years ago, which is like me and our builder would like always just take over and start talking about all the different kind of aspects. But then the problem there was that people like our scouters and the people who were driving, because they weren't like specifically involved with building that component, doesn't necessarily mean they can't talk about it. So we tried to kind of encourage people. So we'd always do practice runs before competitions. We'd always get everyone with some sample questions that they might ask about different components, like how our anti-tip works or our 4-bar. And then we'd have like the people who were just drawing pictures in the notebook talking about really complex engineering concepts. And then we'd have the programmer talking about design award stuff. Like we were kind of trying to vary it so that everyone like had a very solid understanding of every component of the robot, so that you could ask anyone on the team any question about the program or the actual robot itself, and that they'd be able to answer it for you. And that's the kind of thing, because at Worlds especially, during the interviews there, you might kind of get asked directly as an individual, like, oh, what do you think about this? And if you can't answer that, then, you know, what are you going to do?
I mean, take off that, there is actually a way to do that, like without everyone having to know everything, being like, well, if you're like a programmer or something, you can be like, well, I worked on this part of the robot and this is what I worked on, and I can tell you more about this part, but so-and-so worked more on this part and can tell you a lot more about it.
Exactly. So you can segue between different people if you want to redirect the question.
You can segue, but you should try to answer the question at least somewhat to your ability, to show that you do still know about that topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most judges won't count you off on a lot of it, as long as you're showing that everyone did something.
I just want to kind of move forward a little bit, just because I feel like we're kind of lagging behind a little bit.
It's only
Um,
it's only
well,
25.
20 minutes in, but we have a lot to get through. So as you guys can probably tell, and why I've minimized out the PowerPoint is that today we're not going to be focusing mainly on the PowerPoint. Most of the workshop will be outside of the PowerPoint. And as I mentioned to the people who came a bit earlier, we're going to be running this one a bit more interactively. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting engineering notebooks up from various different teams. We're going to be having a look at them start to finish, or maybe some little snippets from some of them, depending on how much time we have, talking about why these things are included, how it relates back to this rubric, and kind of how it satisfies this criteria, and also why this is considered good. So the notebooks we're going to go over, first off, we have my team's notebook, 9649A. I have both of my notebooks here, but for the first time ever, and as I've promised people for 3 years, I finally made a digital copy, which I'm publicly distributing. So you guys get it first. So I'll link that one to you guys at the end of the workshop. But yeah, we're gonna Spencer, stop laughing. Stop laughing.
Laughing at the chat.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the point is, yeah, engineering notebook. We're going to go over this, talk about why it's successful. And then after this, we've also got the Linfield notebook, which is 2915A. They won Excellence Award at Worlds for nothing but net. We also have 240P's notebook for Turning Point, which won Excellence at New Zealand. We've got the Free Range notebook, which won Excellence for Turning Point in New Zealand. And we've
Not
also,
Turning Point.
was it no? Oh,
the
sorry,
Zone.
in the zone. My bad. I think that's it. We got the 4.
Get your
notebook.
facts straight.
We were gonna look at yours as well, but yours is in Auckland, so we're not looking at that one, Jacob. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, that was unfortunate, but so good. Okay.
Uh,
Anyway,
Lockdown.
yeah. So first off, I'll just grab our notebook up. Give me 1 second. So I'm apologizing in advance if some of the photos are a little bit dodgy. I only took these a couple hours ago, so just want to get them through. But yes,
Preparation.
this is the front cover of our first engineering notebook. And I guess it's worth mentioning that it's beneficial to make sure your engineering notebook is presentable. Like Spencer, show us your notebook's cover. Like it's very nice. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Like it's just
There you go.
black, says engineering notebook. That's nice and clear. Our first
That's not
one, we had our number and
Here's
our logo.
mine.
All got our show and tell, right? Now using the out of the box, I've got one as well. I don't know where it is though. Using our out of the box Vex journals is fine. And as we'll see later, the Linfield 2915A's Excellence Winning Worlds notebook was done in the Vex notebook. So there's no problem using those, but generally just for presentability, I always say nice cover. This wasn't hard to do. All it was go to Officeworks, adhesive, print out a page and stick it on the front.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that. It's only a couple of dollars. Doesn't take long to do. Just go on paint.net for a bit, make a little cover, print it out. And then that already on its own just makes it significantly more presentable than that default Vex one. And that already kind of makes it more appealing for judges if they had like 50 notebooks all on the table and they're going, oh, which one? Oh, that one looks good. I'll start with that. And just one thing I thought I'd mention, as you know, we've got 2 books. There's one clear difference. Can anyone tell what the difference is? It's along the edge of the notebook. So if anyone knows, that's spiral bound. This is normally bound. Spiral bound notebooks are not a good idea. We changed our notebook halfway through the season because we kind of realized, we don't want to do spiral. And that's just because there's an issue that kind of comes with backlogging and people being able to insert content before certain things and adding to prior parts of the notebook, which obviously you don't want to do. So when you have something that's actually bound that you can't add pages in, it just provides a bit more proof that you haven't gone back and changed anything to make your future design look better.
Yeah, and in the rubric is actually something in there where it has to be bound or you lose 5 points. That's a big part of it.
It is. So that is a part of the reason why we changed it. So just if you're starting a new book, definitely make sure it's normally bound and not spiral bound because you don't want spiral bound. Anyway, just thought I'd address that because it's on the slide. Anyway, so our team did an introduction. Now, it's not something that every single team has to do, but I think it's important that a team kind of establishes who they are for the judges so they know who they are. Spencer, you're nodding ferociously. Did you want to add something? Or?
I don't like that there's no team picture, but yeah, you wanna have an introduction. It
yeah.
helps with like your goals, and like you can insert your goals in there as well. So it can be few pages, but you can also implement parts of like the goals for every single person, your individual goals, what your team plans on doing, and like who you are, etc.
So just to go on a bit more with that. So our introduction was just kind of serving as just a preface to the book so that the judges know who we are. They know a little bit about our history and where we're coming from. And I mean, well, why not include it, right? It's not going to really penalize you. And I think it just makes it a bit more easier for the judges to approach you guys with an interview. And then you'd obviously start your book off with a contents page, or you could have an index at the end. It depends how you want to do it. And yeah, we kind of just, what we would do with our book was we'd always, those pages for the contents, we would not permanently stick things in. We just kind of temporarily stick it in so that when we'd add later pages, we could put the contents back in so that it would always be up to date. The better solution to that is just to handwrite the contents page. But everything in the notebook should be handwritten. And as I've already said, as you can tell by us having a spiral bound notebook, is that at the start of the season, we weren't particularly that experienced with the notebook. It was my first time doing a notebook actually. So I wasn't aware of the binding rule, and also I had some stuff printed. So there's a lot of things in here that are bad practice, which we're going to directly tell you it's bad practice. Do not type your notebook, make sure it's handwritten. And there's a couple of exceptions to that, but generally speaking, handwritten. Anyway,
that is different now.
Has it
Yeah,
changed?
it got
you-
changed.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is allowed now
Damn.
to have a notebook that is
You can
typed.
type your notebook, but you must have a way that have it time stamped when things are written. So using a program that keeps detailed timestamps of when things were written and edited. I don't know if Google Docs is good enough, but I think Google Docs is the sort of thing.
I think
Alright.
I think
Where
it
it keeps a
works,
timestamp.
but I'm not sure.
Well,
Another
ignore
big
my
thing
Yeah,
is
I'm
like
not
stupidity, I
fully
guess.
sure about it. That
And
was
also
changed
it's-
last season.
Yeah.
On account of the pandemic.
All right.
and
Anyway,
with all that, you want to make sure if you do print it, it is allowed to be printed. It still has to be bound if you do print it. Just saying.
Yeah. Okay,
But yeah.
moving on. So then what we'd start off with is team profile. So this is something that every single team does, and every notebook we look at will have this in it. A team profile is essentially just a little bio of all your team members. So include a photo, make it so the judges know who everyone is. Talk about how old you are. Talk about your roles in the team, as well as a little bit about why you're interested in Vex. So we have a couple pages of these for all of our team members. We had 6 members for this season. And I'll just read out Anthony's bio, because Anthony's got a nice bio here. Hello, my name is Anthony. This is my first year in Vex, and I'm looking forward to working with the team and being a part of the Vex family. 2 main personal hobbies of mine are cars and technology. The reason I decided to join Vex stems from my personal interest in mechanical engineering. This year, I wanted to consistently work as hard as possible to develop essential skills in CADing and 3D design. This is something which I enjoy and am very enthusiastic about and hope to apply in my future studies. In addition to this, I plan to further improve my communication and team working skills, as these are essential for not only Vex, but various other applications in life. So having a little bio talks about what you're interested in, your personal goals, why you like Vex, and Spencer, did you kind of have anything to add about why this is a good thing to have in your book?
It kind of shows your strengths and weaknesses as a team, and like not just your like showing your goals, but like there's the part where you select the best possible solution and plan. This shows that your team roles are, this is why you're a scout, this is why you're CADing, instead of this is why I'm not programming, because his strengths is in mechanical, or he's mechanical engineering, that's what he's interested in, versus he's not interested in programming. Why would he be the programmer?
Yeah,
it's just the logic there.
And just something to show as well, just as another example, this is a quick little screenshot, well, not a screenshot, but the slide from 240p's notebook. So as you can see, they've got the exact same thing, where at the start they have a little bio of a team member, their role in the team. So this is an example of how it's laid out for them. Bio entry, and as you can see, going through it, they have all their team members with a photo listed. Just that, so you know, they can introduce themselves to everyone. So it's something essential. Every single team should do this. It's not something you should be like, oh, I don't want to include that. You have to include this. This is a very, very important thing if you want to have a successful notebook, I guess. Yeah. Jacob, did you have anything to add, or is that you're right with that?
Not really. Just remember to have an up-to-date picture. So it shouldn't be just taken at the start of the season. They want a picture of you with your most recent robot. So for one of my nationals, the one that I won Excellence Award at, we actually took our picture the day of the hand-in of the notebook and printed it out at a place called Warehouse Stationery. I don't know if they have them in Australia.
No.
Printed it out at the shop in Auckland before we dropped off the notebook at the scrimmage we went to after that. So it was really up to date, really recent.
All right, moving on. So the next thing I think is extremely important is talking about your season goals. So for instance, for us, our season goals for Turning Point were to develop a position tracking system. We wanted to have motion profiling working by the end of the season. We had it pretty much finished, almost finished, and then COVID hit and Worlds got cancelled, and then we kind of lost all motivation and will to live, and we didn't finish it. But I think had that not happened, we probably would have. To achieve an overall top 100 robot skill score. Now, by the end of the season, we did not have a score within the top 100. At one point, we were fourth, actually, for the high school. That was pretty early in the season where the scores weren't as high, but we were fourth at one point, which was quite impressive, I guess. And then there's other kind of goals. Have an average win-loss ratio of 10-1, to qualify for Worlds again, and to mentor younger teams. So it's also really important to set these goals that you can track so that as you go through the season, you can talk about, oh, look, I've achieved this goal that I set out to do at the start of the season. And this is how I did it. This is the process. So it's all documented from start to finish, that entire process of how you've achieved those goals. Also, just I thought I'd mention again, this one's a bit more interactive. So if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask in the chat or raise your hand. And if you want us to go into more detail about specific things, why we make certain decisions, we can talk about it because we got the notebooks up. Yeah. Anyway, this is just a page we had on Kaizen talking about the mindset, the advantages, and the process. And that's just to kind of introduce the judges to the process that we use so that they understand kind of how we lay everything out. Next up's a game analysis. So this one's about understanding the field. So for Turning Point, what we were doing is we were kind of taking all the specs. Is it from the game specs manual, Spencer? I always forget what it is. It's an index.
It's index.
Index
It's
A?
A. Yeah.
Yeah. Index A contains field specs of all the elements, so dimensions and all that.
Appendix A, but yeah.
Appendix A. Yeah. Sorry.
Trying to think of the word of it.
All the fun stuff. So what we were doing is we were including these, talking about the main scoring elements, how the value of scores are calculated. Also talking about various different examples of what's considered scored, and then kind of just going off of this. To write out how we've interpreted and understood the game rules. So including different figures of what's considered scored, and just kind of documenting all these important things from the appendix in here, just so that when we refer to these later on, that we have already made a reference to the size of these elements and that it's kind of a bit more continuous. Spencer, did you have anything to add about why these are a good idea to include generally?
Again, it's just identifying the game and like showing you have there's different ways of doing this. Like in my notebook this year, and like how I do it is normally I write out more like the actual rules. So like if I need to, the notebook also serves as a rule book for me. So I don't have to like print out a separate rule book. I can just grab it and be like, this is where it is. And then I have the pictures of certain pictures in the notebook. And then I make comments along the rules that are like important. Like, this is why this is important. This is why, like just things you notice when you naturally read the notebook, put those, or in the rule book, put those in the notebook. Write down what you observe in the notebook, your first thoughts whenever you first read it, put it in. That's just great things to have. People like seeing that. It's something different from actually just having the notebook. So a bunch of people just print out the notebook and put it in the first 20 pages of their notebook and they're good.
Yep. Okay. Next up, sorry about a little wait. We have a little strategy and scoring thing. So this was just an introduction to the game, what approach we wanted to take, and then maybe just discussing some ideas for autonomous routines. So for instance, we're talking about how we'd have our start position here, the process that we'd want to pick up these four goals, these four cubes and a preload, pick up this cube here, put it into the tower, and then score the remaining cubes here. So then we were kind of just going over, this is at the very start of the season, just our first impressions of autonomous, what we thought would be cool strategies in various different positions. Starting here, putting this cube straight in there, then going along this route with the preload to pick this up, and just kind of trying to have from the very start of the season a plan about what we can do, and then so that along the season we can track and also kind of build upon these things, so that maybe we had these autonomous programs at the start of the season, but then by the end of the season, this is what we've got, and this is what we can show in terms of progress. So we started from here, then we went to this, and then we've got this final autonomous program. We were talking about the metagame and a bit of predictions for the season. So this was just a little thing that we had, which during the early season, mid-season, and late season, we had different sections. We'd kind of reflect back upon this, so and how it would change. So what did we say here? We believe that the meta will be dominated by double reverse 4-bar robots. H drive will be the most popular, although various holonomic drives will be seen. On average, over the course of the season, we should see autonomous routines getting progressively better and better in terms of scoring. We believe by the time we reach nationals, there'll be minimal amounts of cascade, scissor, and 6-bar lifts due to the expensive, inefficient, and occasionally unreliable nature of the builds, which by Australian nationals was fairly accurate. The double reverse 4 bars, obviously that's including the tray as well, was the main type of lift. There weren't any cascades or scissors, and pretty much as we went through the season and we reached these milestones early, mid, and late season, we reflected upon what we were expecting at that time and were commenting on, whether we were wrong or right, and then about why. So I think early on we were saying maybe there'll be more like 6 bars because people aren't as confident with a big enough tray, right? Like just kind of tracking that as you go. We had some tournament information where we're just keeping track of where the events were happening, our win-loss ratio, so we could keep to that 10-1 goal, the awards we won, as well as the date. So that was just for personal reference. If you went, oh, when's the next comp? Flip through the book, it's that date. Saves us having to check robot events every 5 minutes. And it was also just a good way for us to keep track for the judges what we did. Cool. All right. So these meeting ones, I'm just going to speed through because I'm so embarrassed of them. There's my messy handwriting and yucky pictures. So
It looks great.
and one thing that is extremely important, which I don't want to repeat a lot, but I'm going to mention it now. These things at the bottom, extremely important. Spencer, you would have these. Jacob, you would have these. Everyone has these.
Yep.
Do you want to explain it, Jacob?
Yeah. So you need to have a signature saying that who wrote whatever page, and judges, if they're looking closely, can sort of notice a pattern in the handwriting from each person. So they'll be able to relate your signature, and so they'll be able to tell whether you're writing logs and getting someone else to sign off to try and hide it for someone else. And then you need to get someone else to sign it to say that they saw you writing it or that they know that you wrote it. Sort of just so that it's like a little bit more accountability, like you get your mentor to sign it or something, just so that it's like less chance for you to be lying to the judges, makes it more authentic, like the authenticity. And then you date when you write it so that they know when you wrote it, so you don't go back and backdate, like Spencer mentioned before. Add logs in later on. You want to keep it up to date when you do it.
So one thing that we did in our book is we kind of broke different things down. So we'd have meeting logs, then we'd have design stages. So most teams would merge these two into like just a general meeting thing where they'd say, oh, on this day we met and we did this. On this day we met and we did this. Ours worked a bit differently where we would have a meeting, discuss it, and then the builder might take the robot home, and then he might work on it over a few days. And then we'd bring that back and talk about what happened over those few days. And then we'd log that under a separate thing, which we refer to as a design stage. So we'll see an example of that as we go. But generally for this meeting, very first meeting of the season, I think the first few meetings are important because it's all about, you'll notice why it matches very much up with the design rubric. And I think probably the first like 20-30 pages of a notebook are probably the most important because that's where you get all that initial planning done. And that's where you can establish those things from the rubric really early on. So anyway, here what we did was we wanted to look at real world examples of different solutions to the game. So in Tower Takeover, we were picking up cubes, stacking them up. So we wanted to look at different lifting mechanisms. So we looked at various examples. Now, obviously, we've already got 6-7 years of X experience. We know double reverse 4-bar scissor lift, but we wanted to kind of reduce it to a lower level that judges would be able to understand it, new team members would be able to understand it, so that pretty much anyone could pick up the book and go, ah, that's where that comes from. So we have a forklift, which is an example of a scissor lift. We had a crane, which there's not really a Vex equivalent to a crane. It's a bit redundant, but you know, the bucket trucks, which would act as a 4-bar. Oh wait, I've missed one, I think. Oh, I might have it on a later page. I've also got a scissor lift, but we'll get to that. Anyway, oh, I've missed a page. 16, it goes to 18. Damn. Oh well, I'll have to include that before I send it out. I'll just see if I can grab it in here. Guys are going to have a very small picture to work off of. But yeah, we also had a scissor lift there. And at the very end, we spoke about accomplishments. So the accomplishments are pretty much just talking about what you achieved in the meeting. So during the meeting, we discussed 4 different lifting mechanisms and briefly looked into the theory surrounding their function, as well as their application in the real world. The versatility of lifting mechanisms investigated will further contribute to our design brainstorming at our next meeting and will hopefully allow us to determine which of these lifting mechanisms will be the most effective for us to use in this season's game. Which is what leads on to what's on the screen now with meeting 2, which is where we then do a follow-up meeting, brainstorm all these different ideas, the DR4B, scissor lift, cascade, 6-8-bar intake, highlight some ideas we thought that were worth pursuing a bit more. Like, oh, we could do a 2-motor, what do you call it? 2-motor intake with a 6 to 8 bar that's resource friendly, or we could do a double reverse 4-bar that's super resource efficient and can be done with 1 motor. So we were kind of just looking at different options we had. And then with that, having a discussion based on the main idea we chose, which I think in this case was a DR4B, and having a deep dive into why that was successful. Then we kind of went over pros and cons of all the different ideas. So we're looking at scissor lifts, cascades, 6 bars, and DR4Bs, which if you came to session number 2, you would know all about. And yeah, we're talking about the pros and cons. So scissor lifts, minimal horizontal movement, but resource heavy, unstable, requires 2 motors and lots of space. So then kind of looking at all this to pick out that idea that we want to use for the season, which in the end, we weighed it all up and agreed the 6 bar and the DR4B. Both of these can be built with 1 motor and we have experience doing so. Both require a lot of space. And then this is something that we said we'd look at further. We'd do another comparison to decide between the 2. Sorry if I'm going a bit fast. Is everyone kind of okay with so far we've been going over? Does anyone have any questions or are we okay? Just to keep going. The notebook will be publicly available afterwards as well, if anyone wants to refer to it. I'll just add that last picture in that I missed, and then it should be fine. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. Sorry. Did you want to go?
I will comment. You'll see how like he switched over to handwriting, like right before this, anyways. One big thing with like the difference between handwriting and printing the pages is you can show your mistakes in handwriting. It's okay to leave mistakes in any engineering notebook because you're technically supposed to be writing them as you go along. Either you misspell something, you put something, or you put the wrong word in the wrong place. Just put a line through it and keep going. Just that's how actual engineering notebooks are. They're not perfect. People are doing them as they go.
Yeah.
Same thing is like he touched on meeting those first 30 pages are important for meeting the guidelines. You can actually get like little small pieces of post-it notes, or you can buy like the pull tabs that you can find at local supply stores for office supply stores. And you can put those tabs in key areas for where you want the judges to go. And then they'll use those tabs as a guide. So you make sure you hit every single criteria. Because if you don't have anything, they might skip over the entire section that you covered in your notebook. And yeah, I just cut this out of post-it note.
Don't rip out any pages. You want to have like all of the pages left in. Even if you scrap an entire page, just cross it out. Don't scribble over it, just cross it out with symbol lines. so that it's still readable, so they can see what you were thinking when you wrote it. It's not supposed to be some immaculate design book. It's a like report. You're not writing a report after the fact. You're writing as you go. And so it doesn't matter if you have bad handwriting. Bad handwriting, it just is a thing. They won't mark you down for presentability too much, as long as it's like understandable, like you can read through it logically.
If it's legible, you're fine. Like if I could pick it up and read it, then I'm pretty sure most judges could.
Okay, so as I said, just kind of moving on, then we were talking about the drivetrain, as you guys saw from session 2 as well, all the different drivetrains, weighing them up, trying to decide what we wanted to go with. In the end, we decided with the X drive, which by the end of the season changed. Something, this is from the Aura, Jacob, you'd be very familiar with this one. The graph about X drives and how the diagonal movement's faster.
Right, yeah, so
yes.
X drives have square root of 2 times faster speed because of the way vectors are added together. So he's quoting a website on the Aura site, page written by George Gillard, explaining why you get increased speed with an X drive and decreased torque.
Yeah, so just adding little things like that where you can justify your thinking with a little bit of maths or science, even if it's just something really simple like that little picture where the judge can just look at it and go, that makes sense, right? Just to add a little bit of explanation. Also, one thing you'll notice is at the end of the page in this blank space, we've crossed it out. Now that's really important because what some teams do is they might leave half a page empty and then 2 months later go back and then add in that and like, I'm thinking this, so that then it tracks with what they've done in the future. The whole point is that whenever you have empty space when you're done, cross it out so the judges can see, okay, they haven't made use of this space. So that's a tip.
Yeah,
That's
another
something
thing
you
with
should do.
that,
Yep.
you don't want your notebook to look like you got all of your predictions right, because if you got all your predictions right, it looks like you went back and wrote them after the fact. So don't be afraid to write predictions that might not come true, but you have some hope. And just remember that if you are going back, it looks really bad to have everything you predicted come true. Well, not really bad, but it looks suspicious.
Yep. I'm going to try to skip through. We had a Gantt chart, so all about project management. For instance, we want to build an X drive by this date, what it's dependent on, how long it's going to take, and to keep track of that whole timeline. And that's obviously something that you can also assign different people to, like, I want this person to work on this person to work on this. You could add that to the Gantt chart. Overall, it's a really, really effective system to use for project management. It's taught at a VCE level, I guess, in software development and stuff. We're taught about it at uni all the time, especially like events and all that. It's really important that you have good project management. And with something like Vex, where you're working on a project for like a year long, and it's a massive thing, you should really keep track of the little things. It doesn't take long to make, and it's also really helpful with keeping on track. All right, let's see, where are we next? Yep. So then we followed through. We just kind of started our then design stage, as I mentioned before, which is where we would start building the robot. We talk about all the little decisions we make, why we mounted things here, why we did this. Like here, we decided we wanted to we would investigate purchasing 45-degree gussets or finding an alternative method to more accurately mount C-channels. Talking about tiny little details that might make the robot a little bit better. Just being very, very picky. This could be a problem. We could have a friction issue like this, but we're going to try this to solve it. And then later on, then tracking, we tried this solution, but it didn't work. Being very, very, very particular with every decision you make. I think being very kind of critiquing yourself on every little thing, I think is extremely important. Spencer, Jacob, do you guys want to agree with that, or do you disagree?
Yeah, just put as much little things in there and put. Not everything's gonna be red, but if you make it to excellence or design worlds, sometimes they are red. They go through it a lot more in depth. And even then, some pages will randomly be flipped to, and they might read it. You don't know, and it just looks good.
So here we were talking about experimenting with sliced flaps and why we thought that was effective. It wasn't effective, I'll say that, but at that stage we were trying to justify why we thought that was a good idea. Then we were talking about our very first robot here. Yeah, so it just goes through pretty much explaining why these things are really efficient. Yeah, then we just did little improvements. This is a quick little page. Little tiny changes we made. What did we do? The tray panels, we added little bits of polycarb here. There, picture, slide explanation, done. Adjustment number 2, angle adjustments. We changed the angle. We built an angling tool so we could make sure things were angled correctly. Little tiny things, and you can just bang, add it in the notebook, show everything. Might be something that you change on a meeting. You just meet up at lunch one day, you know, one of your teammates is just eating like a sausage roll or something, and then you're just kind of chilling at the back like, oh, what's he doing? Oh, he's tightening this and he's changing this. It's like, oh, why is it in the book? You know, like, because little things like that add a lot of detail. That's a bit of a weird example, but it's right, isn't it? Like, you should really include every little change you do. If it's, even if it's not significant, make sure you keep track of it and why you've done it. Yeah, did you want to add something?
Yeah, zoom into the pictures. You'll notice in the top left and top right of the pictures, and you'll notice on every picture, if you actually look, you'll see a signature of just initials. You want to make sure you always do that to, like, if a picture does happen to like get ripped out for some reason, judge rips it out, it shows that it was there and that there was an actual picture there and something happened to it, etc. It also shows, like, if you go back and you put a different picture in, then it'll show like, why is there half a signature there? And so it kind of dates it, and it also shows that if something happens to it, well, you have backup plan.
Yep. I completely forgot about that. That is extremely important. Yes, I definitely do that. All good. Then we just kind of had programming. I'm not going to go into this too much, but sorry. Just having a slight rundown of the program, explaining maybe little different algorithms in there. We just had it with our controller for driver control, talking about where we assign the different buttons. Jacob, did you want to add something?
It's all right to print and glue that in.
Yeah.
As well.
As you'll see a bit later on in the book, a bit towards nationals, I tried to write this entire algorithm in the book, and there was no indentation. It was just slabs of text for like 3 pages, and it's like, what are you doing? You know? So
yes, I do not recommend handwriting code.
Do not do that. Do not do that.
If it's like 1 or 2 lines, maybe you're fine, but it's just straight better to print it and take a screenshot and print it. There's even, I think in was it Vex code, they have an option now to like print your code. I don't remember if that was in Robot C. I'm pretty sure it sucked in Robot C, but I think in Vex code there isn't a way to do it without having to screenshot every snippet and make 20 different screenshots.
So here's another thing that we did, which I think is an important thing, which is competition reviews. So what a competition review was for us was talking about, we usually did it the day after a competition or the night we finished a competition, just around the time. And we pretty much spoke about the whole competition, how the day went, what happened, what went successful, what went wrong. And just like a kind of a summary of the day, like a recount. Now we were talking about here, like the main issue we had faced was with our stack size. Because of the veering and our lack of field element practice, we had never experienced the goal zones, just how small they were. When attempting to score in them, X drive would go inside the larger goal and we'll be able to neatly unload a stack. However, whilst trying to get out, due to the veering and minimal wiggle room, we would often tip the stack and lose a point. So kind of critiquing what we could do better. And then having at the end an outcome kind of section, an overview, observations, breaking it down again. So overview is just a summary. Placed 3rd in qualification rankings. Due to budgeting, we were not able to order field elements for practice, which is us trying to justify why that happened. And then in the end, we won tournament champions and excellence. Robot skills wasn't offered, which is why we didn't have a score in the book for that. Our cube capacity was 3. So just kind of keeping track of that along the season. I think by the end it was like 11 or 12. And then here, a little note here, the intake had on like 2 occasions become misaligned. We believe this is related to this. And then that's something to investigate further over the next few weeks. so that doesn't happen by the next competition.
I don't know if we've covered this, but or whether we've mentioned it already, but it's really good to have just like even just a page writing about your performance at scrimmages, what went well, what didn't. Like do a plus minus interesting maybe, PMI that looks good, showing off what you reflected from what you did at the scrimmage, and even do PMIs of other teams, like what other teams did, what you thought was really good, what they could improve on, to show that you are like thinking about the design process in the game. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Sorry, just skip that slide. I wanted to go over it. Then we have an action plan. So that's just talking about, based on everything we've observed, what are we going to do about it? Here, work on rebuilding the robot to a tank drive, because we wanted to test how it compares to X drive, fix all the issues in relation to the drive and the goal zone, because we had the X drive and it was kind of veering on a slight angle. So we were like, we don't want that to happen. Let's just go for a tank drive. It's safer, more torque. Let's just do that. Talking about autonomous routines to have more practice time and to purchase field elements, so we could obviously practice a bit more. Then we went on to drive assembly. So this was when we were building our tank drive. So stripping everything down from the start and then going over it all again, what we changed, even keeping all the empty space on the side closed off. No empty space on a page. It's not good. Did any of you guys have anything to add, by the way, just whilst we're going through this?
Yeah. When like looking at this, and like it is good to show like your build process. Some teams will go more in depth, and that's good because there's in the actual rubric, it's like, let me find the actual thing. It's your process needs to be in such great clarity and detail that the reader could recreate the project history and build the current robot from the notebook. So making sure like you pick up small details is very important, because you could take pictures of like what he's showing, like all the different things that they did build. But how do you build that? Like, what size metal is it? What screws do they have? What standoff sizes, etc. You want to make sure those are either listed, or you just have a bunch more pictures, which fills a bunch more space sometimes. So that's usually when you start getting up into, if you're going for like local excellence or local design for once, yeah, taking a picture of the just a subsystem is probably just going to be good enough for you. That's most likely 4 or 5 points in that part at locals. But for larger scale excellence at worlds, design at worlds, they're going to give you 2 points for that. They're going to give you 1 point because they can't recreate from that. Same with the program, showing your evolution of the program, and they need that program. Otherwise, how are they going to drive your bot?
Exactly. So I'm losing my voice a little bit. One of the other things I just thought I'd add to that is including a specs one. I think if we go over the Linfield notebook a bit later, it includes things specifically about how many C channels they use, the size of the C channels, what RPM the motors are on, all the little specific details about what parts they did. And it's good practice too. Obviously, we didn't do it in this book, but if you're going, as Spencer said, for a world's level, definitely make sure you're including lots of detail about exactly what you're using. And the easiest way to do that is if you CAD your robot as well, because you can keep track of everything on there. Display, you can kind of pull everything out and go, oh, this is where this screw goes in. Very useful. We didn't include it in this book, unfortunately, but it is something that is extremely, extremely useful, and it makes all that so much easier.
I'd say if I had access to doing it. Yeah. I'd say if I had access to my notebook, I'd probably have about, I think, 100 or so pages of every single time we built something, every single time we added to the robot. It had what screws we used, it had exactly where the screws went in. It showed the pieces of metal that we used, exactly everything laid out. So beforehand that we knew we were going to try and use, or that we did use, so people knew.
Just to add on as well, this is a flow chart we made for our autonomous sector. So adding little kind of visual things like this for the judges who might not have that much programming experience also helps them understand the logic, how the program flows. Very, very useful tool. So I would recommend making flow charts as well. Another competition review. I'm just going to kind of skip through a bit because we've already hit the hour mark and I still want to go through Linfield's notebook. We'll just do a quick little run through of theirs. But yeah, I'll make this one available. I'll send a link out at the end of the session. And I'll also be in the description of the video if you're watching a recording on YouTube. Yeah, cool. So as you can see here, we kind of just went over some more autonomous routines for nationals, talking specifically about the path we wanted to take. Talking about the scouting sheet, doing a revamp of that. Here was some stress testing we did with some dumbbells, just kind of measure how much weight we could hold with our lift. Just documenting a lot of different things that we were doing. And here's the aforementioned page of doom. That's just lots of code written out. That's just not readable at all and just gives you a headache to stare at. Don't do it. Don't do this. I hate it. So if you really want to read that and go through the suffering I had taking that photo 3 years after the fact, you'll have access to it. Okay, now we'll quickly go over Linfield's book. I have 240p's and Free Ranger's book as well. We're gonna maybe just pull up a couple pictures from there. I don't have their permission to distribute those books, so unfortunately I'm not able to send links to you guys for those or kind of go over them in detail on here just because they obviously want to keep that private. But yeah, I'll go over this. Also, the Linfield notebook, which is this one, which on Excellence at Worlds in Nothing But Net, is publicly available. So I'll also include a link to that one a bit later. So everyone has a copy of it, as it's a brilliant thing to make use of. So similarly to our notebook, there's a contents page, team photo. There's a little description of all the different team members. So their goals, I guess, what they do in the team. Their team overview is kind of similar to what we did with our introduction as well. Their timeline, competitions, when they added different components to their robot. Game analysis, exactly the same. All the different elements, balls, descoring, elevating, how they're going to make use of that, pros, cons. This even again, the design process, exactly like Kaizen. It's you notice this in all the notebooks that are successful. They all have the same things in them. Always talk about your design process. Always team photo. Always talk about the team. Game analysis. Spencer, you're cracking up there, mate. What's going on?
Nothing, is something else.
All right. And then here, weighing up all the different solutions again. You got the mechanism, the X drive, the T drive, sorry, the plus drive, the H drive, the tank drive. And as we can see again, this notebook's also making use of the fact that let's brainstorm all the different lifts or all the different drives and choose, whilst also telling you why we're choosing this, why we're going with what we're going with. We have a record of it, we can comment on it, and then maybe, oh, the tank drive's not as effective or it's not as fast. Let's try an X drive, right? So having it all in there already, and it also provides the judges definitions of things so they know what these are when you refer to them. Doing the same thing for the shooter, catapult, flywheel, puncher. It's a age-old debate, isn't it, Spencer? Were you Cata gang or?
I
No,
was
you were
puncher.
flywheel gang. No, puncher gang.
I was puncher.
Your puncher gang. Jacob was Cata gang, and I was flywheel gang.
This was and nothing but net. That was flywheel though. That was double flywheel.
Hey man. So what it is the
And
fastest.
actually, I was actually catapult and double flywheel. I forgot we had a catapult too on the same bot.
Man, oh man. Yeah, and then that was just going into more detail about flywheels, chassis, doing their drivetrain. As you can see, the robot at this stage isn't super detailed. It's just really basic, but still documenting it. There's a CAD of the thing they sketched here. They did a CAD of it, shows progression. And then as they go along the season, they were talking about the, I always forget what these are called, the follower thing. Spencer?
Linear slide slip gear.
The linear slide slip gear, yes.
That's exactly what that is. That is the old Vex slip gear from linear slides. I don't think they sell them anymore. They might again, but for a few years they stopped selling them. But yeah.
I
They
bought
still
some.
sell them in the advanced motion kit.
Yeah. Okay. That's where originally you got them, but for some reason we couldn't get them for like a year or two.
Oh, just before I forget, I'll just quickly go back here for 1 second. Where was it? So obviously you're allowed to use polycarbonate. Very important thing to include. Make sure you can prove how you cut your polycarb from the required sheet. You're only allowed to, like, the common thing that people do is they'll have their sheet of polycarb and they'll cut their stuff out of it, but they'll kind of realize like, oh, this might not actually fit within the rectangle I meant to cut it from. So this was just kind of us showing that this is the size of the polycarb. We're obviously using a lot of polycarb on the robot. This is us proving we can fit it within that area so that you know that we aren't breaking any rules. This wasn't to scale. I provided a scale here as well, so you could tell the size difference. Make sure you include that if you're using a lot of polycarb. If you're using a little bit, it's not a big deal because, you know, oh, that's definitely within size. But if you're using an excessive amount, we had like a little thing printed out and stuck on cardboard so that when we go to the competition, if the judge asked us, we'd be like, haha, here you go. Here's our little cardboard flowchart. Oh, sorry, cardboard example of all of our different polycarb and how we used it.
They will make you take it off at Worlds.
Yeah.
I've seen teams have to take off all their polycarb to fit inside the map. And if they didn't fit, they wouldn't get inspected. Another thing is like if you just have decorative polycarb, and it could potentially like stop something from entering the robot, put something behind it so like it can be proven as decorative. Otherwise, they'll make you count that as part of your polycarb.
Yep. So as we can just kind of see going through it, they include a lot of pictures about it, all annotated, about all the different parts of the design process. And as you can see, they've also crossed off empty space. And I'll try find, oh yeah, sorry. They're also logging who is witnessing and writing these pages as well. And if we find a photo, did they sign over the edge? No, they might on the other ones, but
Bad.
They didn't. Naughty, naughty. I think what they did do, no, they didn't. Never mind. Yep. And yeah, as you can see, they just do a date, a log, and what they changed. So keeping it simple as well. Talking about how the polycarb connects. Yeah. Going through it, I reckon it makes sense. I'll provide these as well, so you can go through the whole thing in detail if you really want to do your own deep dive on these. Actually, I'll grab a link to this one now. And I'll just post that one in the chat. I'll give that to you guys now. These guys are really, really good at Vex, aren't they, Jacob? It's the two Barkers. They're very, very, very good. Very talented.
Yeah.
Jack
They're
wasn't
very good
in the
at
team at that
robotics.
time. He had graduated by that point. But they both, Jack
That's
and
to me,
Steve
Spencer.
Barker, have got
Oh, shit.
multiple world championship titles, including BattleBots. But in Vex, they've won worlds a good few times.
So they're the BattleBot world champions at the moment as well, which is like, I
Yeah,
guess, a big deal. But
It is a very big deal.
Yeah.
It's the end game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the engineering notebook. So if you really want to look at a professional level, their book is considered to be really, really good.
Only just
I
slightly.
think you'd probably want to put more detail in than they did nowadays. But it is a good example to look at.
Ideally, I think what you should do is you should include, like if you kind of look at our book, how we included a lot of pictures and we tried to have a bit more color and make it a bit more visual. Doing that, but with the level of the Linfield book, I think would be really beneficial. Jacob, do you kind of concur with that?
Yeah, lots of pictures is good.
Yeah, pictures, color, doing some more detailed, maybe game analysis with the specs, stuff like that. I think it just adds a whole nother level to it. Obviously, like our notebook might not be the best in the world. It definitely hasn't won any Judged Awards at Worlds. But for Australia, we won every excellence award for a season, and we won at nationals and states. So I'd like to say that the notebook was really good, and also the judges would always say really good things about it. So I hope it's a good resource that a lot of people can make use of, and As I said, I'll make it available for everyone so that you guys can go through it. You can read all the pages. You can memorize our notebook if you wanted to.
I'm
And
gonna do it.
yeah, do it. Have an exact memory of our notebook, photographic memory of it. But yeah, so just it's something that might help you kind of just know what direction to go in. And I think looking at our book, looking at Linfield, all these different books, definitely super useful.
Photographic is a little hard for me to do. Just Ted.
Now, I just thought I would just point out that this is really funny. I think there was a book I started downloading 3 hours ago. I got sent. It was the Linfield not Linfield, Free Range 2921S, their engineering book, which won. It was excellence at New Zealand Nationals in the zone. Now I started
2018.
downloading. Yeah, 2018. I started downloading that one 4 or 5 hours ago. It is still downloading. I was hoping to show it off. It is currently here at 13 gigabytes, and it's still going. 12.2.
They sent you a virus.
Yeah. Oh man, I looked at it. I can pull up. I don't really want to. Here, wait. Let me get it over on this. I'll
Who
show some
has
pages.
12 gigs of? Hold up.
Yeah.
Who is?
It's a digital book. They have a lot of like. What I'll show is I'll just show.
So
Yeah.
that team is pretty much 240p, but a season earlier.
But boy, did they go into detail. Like, I don't want to distribute too much of it. So let me just find.
I think part of the file size is just because of the amount of pictures they had.
They have so many like this here was the table of contents just for what months was it? It was like it was only a couple months. This was like maybe over a 3-month period. They've got like 10 volumes, or like not 10, 6 volumes, or five, something like that. I don't know, four volumes of 3-month period. So, and it would just go in detail about everything. Like so many different pictures were included. Going over the physics as well, kind of how things join, placements of things, super duper in depth. Yeah, like I wish I could show it more. The download hasn't finished though. I don't really want to go over it too much. Yeah, diagrams.
And like just like them, and like how I am another team from my org 6135W, theirs was also just as detailed. They put every single screw hole in their notebook. Every time they took out a screw, they notebooked it. Like notebooks can get very detailed at a high level.
100%. Just grab this one open. So they broke in New Zealand. You guys were allowed to do digital notebooks for a couple. It was like a trial. You guys could do digital notebooks.
We did a trial thing. We're not sure if it was actually a proper trial, but we did digital notebooks. It wasn't that season, I don't think.
Better have been.
I don't remember which season it was, but yeah, we did digital notebooks, but it wasn't done like that. It was done using Google Docs with suggestions, and it was a complete mess.
Yeah. So sorry, this book that I'm just showing now is Free Range's strategy. So I feel like in terms of what I can show, this doesn't really matter anymore because it was for like 5 seasons ago. But this is all just super in detail stuff about all the strategies they have, all the different kind of ways of looking at the game, scoring patterns, how they perform different autonomous things. Yeah, you can tell they're going in lots of depth here about everything. Very good, very, very good. So I guess I'll stop screen sharing. Okay. Now I guess that was I don't know, we're at an hour now, a bit over an hour. So I don't really want to go too over. Now, obviously we didn't have like a massive PowerPoint, and we didn't go over like little tiny, like more presented things. It was a bit more rough, and we were just kind of a bit more conversational with it, I guess, in the sense that we were just trying to go through a book and explain the decisions behind things. I'll just quickly pull up the rubric again. Give me 1 second, screen share. Yeah, based on the rubric here, like if we look back, identify the game's challenges or robot design challenge in detail. So that's all the game analysis, break down the game. talking about different things. List 3 possible solutions. Puncher, catapult, flywheel, or X drive, tank drive, H drive. You can look at the different drive bases. You can look at all that, and that already satisfies here. Look, in detail at the start of each season. As long as you're going into detail about it, that's already 5 marks on the rubric. Citations provided for ideas that came from outside sources, such as online videos of other teams. Maybe talk about YouTube reveals. Oh, I saw this team did this. I watched their reveal. I thought this. Or, oh, in the real world, there's bucket trucks or scissor lifts. Using other examples that you can provide evidence for and cite as an inspiration fulfills that criteria. And that's another 4 or 5 marks on the rubric. Explaining why the solution was selected through testing and or a decision matrix. We've tested this. We went to a competition. We've done a review after the competition. We had an X drive. Now we want to do a tank drive. So we're talking about why we're selecting things. Recording the steps to build. Well, that's what we've been going over. You have all your meetings. You show the robot all the little decisions you're making. Now, obviously, the kind of little additional thing is to include enough detail for the reader that they could recreate it. And that just comes down to how much you're willing to put into the notebook. And if you're actually wanting or able to just go full-fledged into it, and how many C channels are you using? How are you mounting it? Super detail about it. Make like a Lego instruction manual of sorts using CAD. Recording all the steps of testing. So that's stress testing. Like we had the dumbbells, putting it on there, adding things like that. Showing how the design process is repeated, talking about Kaizen or your design model, talking about how you're going back to the start, how we did after our first competition. Kind of just going through and showing how you improve the robot through small changes across the season. Recording the design development, which is what you do through the whole book, providing a complete record of team and project assignments, Gantt charts are keeping track of everything, who attended team meetings, accomplishments, what you set out to achieve following that, action plans, all of that, which was included in all the notebooks we looked at already, including a table of contents as well. And then here, 5 points if the notebook has appropriate evidence that documentation was done in sequence with the design process. That's why the signing is extremely important. That's why dating everything is important. And that's also why doing it on paper, I guess, is preferred. You can do digital timestamps online, but paper is always the way to go, I think. Now, there's obviously not much we can talk about in terms of the interview, but in terms of a design book, I think we've gone over everything that's super important, I guess. So I hope you guys had some benefit.
I just realized something. Use pens. Don't use pencils.
Yes.
It is actually marked. It is specifically stated, I think, in the first part of the rubric to use pens.
Because you're meant to cross your
ink.
mistakes out. You're not meant to rub them out. You have to cross them out. They have to see what your mistakes were.
Yeah, it's in the record of team and project management part. It says a bound should be ink.
Well, black pens are fine. White, not white pens. Black pens, red pens, blue pens. You can use all types.
Any pen. Yeah.
Purple pens, yellow pens. As long as it's
like,
not an EPP.
not an EPI pen. All right. So I guess
I don't know how well this will show, but you can see in there, if you can look at my camera, there are multiple colors of pens that I use on my notebook this year. That's just the basic game analysis, but you can use, no, pencils are not okay at all. The crayons are not ink,
crayons.
so it specifically says ink. So
grab this, give me 1 second. So as you guys can tell, we're just winding down now. Copy that. Okay, so in the chat, I'm going to be posting a link to the 96498A engineering notebook. I still need to add that one page that I missed, so just be aware that it's missing a page, and I will.
Hey, Spencer.
Yep.
Wrong
I did it
chat.
to you again. Oh, why am I keep private messaging you? There you go. There you go. And I'll be sure to distribute that as well amongst the other Australian kind of communities.
If you have the money to use a tattoo gun, use a tattoo gun.
Okay. So I guess now we'll do a little Q&A. Did anyone have any questions at all for us about anything we've covered in the session? Maybe how, like extra details, anything? Either in the chat or raise your hand on Zoom.
It's 5 a.m.
Okay, well, I'm
It's
going
5:30 a.m.
to assume that that means we're all good. So just jumping back over here.
What's up, Martin?
We have the same little conclusion. every single session,
Bad.
which is, if you want to go further and truly excel, we definitely encourage you to communicate with other teams. Now, both locally and internationally, it's extremely beneficial to have some dialogue with other teams. Sorry, I'm really losing my voice here. I got really sore throat. So the best way to do this is through various different Discord servers, and mainly the VTAL, which is the unofficial official Vex server. It's not official, but it's the main one, I guess, main Discord server for Vex. There's thousands of people in there, and they're all willing to help and talk and just discuss things about Vex. That's how I've met Jacob and Spencer. It's how I met Lachlan. It's how I've met everyone in the Vex community. And that's how you guys can meet everyone in the Vex community, just communicating. There's mentors and coaches in there as well. And there's also the Vex Australia server, which is just for locally for Australian competitions. Super useful for communicating and keeping track of tournaments and stuff like that as well.
There's
So
also the Vex forum online.
did you want to explain a bit more about that one, Jacob?
Oh boy.
The Vex forum is just, it's like a message, a posting board where you can post questions, post pictures, start conversations, and it all stays in its own threads related to the topic at the top that you select when you create the post. You get a lot of student and mentor interaction. So it's not just the students, it's the teachers and the mentors talking in there. Whereas the Discord tends to be more of just students and competitors. So if you want to be talking to mentors from around the world, the forum is quite good for that.
All right. Well, I guess just there, I guess we'll wrap it up. So thank you all for coming to session number 3 of Building Success. We have session 4 in a month. It's a bit over a month, actually. It's on the 23rd of November, I think. That one has Lachlan from 240p, and he'll be running the whole workshop pretty much. I'll be there. I won't be talking very much. And that's going to be all about programming. So it's going to be an introduction to programming on Vex. And that'll be going over kind of just basic syntax. So how to assign motors, doing really basic things. And then hopefully, I don't know exactly what we're going over, but we might be looking at PID, maybe some profiling, and trying to get it a bit more in advanced level. But yeah, we'll see what happens. That's in a month from now. So bit of a break between those two, but hope you guys all enjoy. And just to people here from the uni, good luck with all your exams. I know exam time's coming up, so make sure you guys study, I guess.
What's studying?
What is studying? I have no idea. I know what cramming is. I can can vouch for that one. But yeah, thank you all for coming again. And yeah, I'll end the recording there, and thank you all. So goodbye, I guess. Yeah, that's a bit of an awkward ending, isn't it?
I just saw what Martin pointed out.